Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to class today. Thank you for joining me. Whether you're watching live or you're watching the recording, I appreciate you for watching. As we get started today, I want to say that I'm going to handle this a little bit differently today, right? Because the current module is a 2-week module, right? I started by giving you some information last week since, we had the pre-recorded information. since I was having trouble live streaming. Haven't got my new device yet, but we got the one that we have to limp along enough to where we could get a live stream going this week. But since I put all that information out last week, I didn't really have a whole lot more information to give you all this week. So all I want to do is kind of review some of the material with you while doing an example. So I really want to keep this incredibly short today. Hopefully that will maybe entice you all to watch it a little bit as well. So I'm just going to kind of do an example, and then in doing an example, it'll be some stuff that can kind of prep you to be able to do your lab assignments a little bit better. And in doing so, we can also review some of the concepts from the other videos. So go back and watch those first. Go back and watch the stuff that I posted last week first. Come back here, and we can do this material. And this will be, your modulator assignments are due next week. Then I think we have 2 weeks for Module 9, and then 2 weeks for Module 10, and about a week for the final project, something like that. Right? Somewhere in there. It's in the Begin Here module. You can go back and check that out to get the exact dates. So I'm just going to start coding today, right? That's all I'm going to do. We're going to create a dictionary here and look at a few different ways to access the items in that dictionary. Remember that, kind of as we were talking about last time, right? Our dictionary is essentially just this this key value pair situation, right? I've got a singular data structure here where I can take keys and different pieces of data and relate them to one another. And that kind of allows us to have this sort of pseudo database type of situation. We can even allow different dictionaries to kind of interact with one another, right? I think that's one of the things that you saw in the previous videos, where I use one dictionary to look for something in another dictionary and can relate them on that sort of unique key, that primary key type of value there. But all we're doing here is we're just essentially creating these key value pairs. So I'm going to create a dictionary called my dictionary. And I'm going to set that equal to our dictionary data structure, right? And there are different ways that we can formulate this. However, our Python utilizes the curly braces. This is about the only place curly braces are utilized in Python to wrap around the different elements of our dictionary. And in our dictionary, we can have as many different elements as we want. As the key for our dictionary, which is the first half of our dictionary item, our key can be basically anything as long as it is immutable. Right, so we want some kind of term here, right? We can have a string, we can have a number. It's just going to be immutable in the code, right? So we can't change our keys. Our keys, as we get them, are permanent. Or as we establish them, our keys are permanent. So I'm just going to kind of do a little sample dictionary here. Have some stuff that we might do. So we might just, we have a key and a value. So we might just have some sort of key with some sort of value, right? Our key can be almost anything, and our value can be anything, because our value can be either mutable or immutable based on the structure, right? We can put integers, strings, booleans, lists, whatever we want to as the value of the items in our dictionary. And so like one of the things that we might want to do, right, is we might want to make this to be like different departments in a grocery store. Let's go that direction with it, right? So we might be able to say, oh, this is the deli department, and in the deli department I have a certain segment of items, like say ham, turkey, and cheese, or whatever I want, right? So now what I've done here is I've used two different data structures in conjunction with one another. I've used our dictionary and our lists to establish this sort of key value pairs, right? And I could also do this, we could have as many as we want, as long as we put the comma at the end of them. Some of you who might be familiar with JSON and JavaScript objects, this should look incredibly familiar, right? So if we have our dairy department, we might have, let's say, milk, butter, so on and so forth, right? And so the only thing that's going to change here is how we access these different items. We can basically think about them as kind of a named variable, right? So the name of our variable would be the key, and then once we can access that item in our dictionary, we can treat whether the key or the value the way we would treat anything else, right? So let's have a produce department, and let's put our usual produce in that. Let's say apple, banana, carrot. Right, so if we want to create a function that will give us all of the keys here, that's relatively simple. Right, so as we are looping over this dictionary, like we might have looped or iterated over a list previously, what we get by default is the key for this key value pair. So let's create a function called def get keys. Now this dictionary here we've created at the global level. So if we want to be really explicit about the dictionary that we're using here so that we can understand within the scope of our function that when we say my dictionary, the dictionary that we are talking about is this dictionary that is at the global level, we can make sure to talk about global my underscore dictionary. I talk about this global keyword in those videos that I sent out previously as well. And so now it knows that when I'm in this function, when I reference my dictionary, I'm referencing this dictionary. And so there are different ways that we can do this, right? The first thing that we could do is simply just iterate over the dictionary. So we can use our enhanced for loop like we were talking about with lists, and we can simply write a for, we can call this anything. We can call this for DPT in my dictionary. In that event, we can print the department. Right? Very simple. So now all we'd have to do is call this function. We'll do that behind our main gate. If name is main, we will call this function, which is get keys. And so if we just iterate over the dictionary itself, what it's going to return to us is just the key names, right? So we get deli, dairy, and produce, which is our key names, deli, dairy, and produce. So now we can look at how we can, or don't let me get ahead of myself there. There is another way that we can do this, and that is by utilizing the keys function, right? So if we utilize our keys function, we can, let's just print dictionary.keys, or my dictionary.keys, that's the issue here, my dictionary.keys, and see what we end up with here, right? And so we get our dictionary keys that are displayed as an array. So essentially we're doing the same thing that we're doing here. We would have to iterate over that array. So we would, it would end up being basically the same. for department in my dictionary dot keys. We print department, and it's going to give us the exact same result: deli, dairy, and produce. Right, so in adding the dot keys here, right, in this instance, what we're essentially doing is we're taking our entire dictionary object and we're loading it into this to be iterated over, and we're just pulling back the keys. In this case, we're just specifically creating a dictionary keys object, which we saw when we printed that out, that only loads the keys. So if we want to kind of look at it from that perspective, this is slightly more efficient in terms of the amount of memory that it's using, but not very much, right? And so we can just use this to iterate over that. Now, to get our values, we're going to start doing something very similar. And we can say, well, let's create a function def get values. And we will have our global of my dictionary in here. And what I'd like to do here is just iterate over my dictionary and get the values instead of the keys. And one of the ways that we talked about this previously is, in order to access the data that is in the keys, we can basically turn our key in the lock, and then we can get into that house that holds that data, right? So we essentially need to do this exact same thing, right? We need to loop through our keys, but instead of printing the department, we are going to print the item in my dictionary that has that department name as its key, right? So if we were to now run get values, what we should expect to get here are these three lists that we can utilize. And we got them, right? Ham, turkey, cheese, milk, butter, apple, banana, carrot. And so as we address each of these, right, we can address each of these lists as we would work with the list in the previous module. So if we only want the first thing that's in that list, right, we can, since we're using lists here, we can address the item at index location 0, say. So in this list, which resides as the value of this particular key, which we're just looping through my dictionary and getting all of the keys, we can get the first item that's in that list that way. Ham, milk, and apple. But we could also go through here and just kind of create this sub for loop to print out each item on each individual line. And so we're only doing this, right, because we are using lists here instead of individual data points, right? We could use strings here, and in this case, we would be done at this point, right? Just printing the my dictionary with the key would give us that exact value, right? It's just that in this case, the value is a list. So now that we have that value of a list, we have to go through and manipulate those values to get something else out of there. So I can do an enhanced for loop for item in my dictionary with the key of whatever iteration is. I can print the item, and this way I can access each individual item that is in these lists that are a part of this dictionary. So what we've done here is we've nested data structures inside of data structures. We've nested our list data structure inside of our dictionary data structure. And then that gives us the ability to access a whole bunch of information. And so something that we could do here, right, is we could say return the department of a known item. So if we had our user enter in a grocery item they wanted to purchase, like say cheese, right? In fact, let's do that. We can take we can call this search item, and we can set it equal to enter the input of enter name of item. Right, so now we're allowing our user to enter the name for an item. We're going to search through all the keys so we can get all the values out individually. We're going to search through all the values so we can say if item equals search item, then we're going to return the department. So we can return the department from the grocery store where that item is located, right? So we're just going to return or print this item is located in the EPT department, right? So easy peasy. So we can enter the name of our item. Let's say we entered in cheese. And we see that that item's in the deli department, right? If we entered in apple, we see that that's in the produce department. So we could see here how we can both get keys and values utilizing this same get values method, right? There is another way, however, that we can go through and do this, right? And that is to get our keys and values at the same time. We will call this get both. So we will have a def get both. We're going to use our global of my dictionary. And in this instance, what I want to do is I want to get a list of the items. A list of the items. That are in our dictionary, right? And so we can use our get both. And so what I can do here is I can we'll just print my dictionary dot items function here just to see what that gives us, right? So let's hash this out and let's call our get both function to see what that gives us, right? And what we'll see here is that it essentially gives us a list of tuples. A tuple is an immutable data type that's represented by the parentheses here. So we have these items objects in this thing, so we can iterate over all of these keys and values. So I can get everything here at the same time. So I can say for key, comma, value, and I could name these anything. K and V, key and value, right, are the ways that I kind of like to usually do them because it helps me keep up with it. In my dictionary dot items, then we can print the key and the value, right? Because we're getting both items here separately. And so if we wanted to, we could take this a step further And we could say for item in value, print f the, or we could just say item dot title is in the key dot title department. And so now we'll get a list of every item and every department that it's in. So we get ham is in the deli department, turkey's in the deli department, cheese is in the deli department, milk is in the dairy department, so on and so forth. So this gives us the ability to go through and write everything out, make it super simple, do it all in one statement. So we actually did an even more advanced situation here than what we were looking at in the module. And that's where I'm going to leave it. I'll hang out for just a second, just in case anybody has any questions. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.